I was born the podcast. You've only adapted it. Because this is the billion movie club.
So for
Hello.
those who couldn't hear Bane, he was saying this is the $1 billion movie club. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much. Seems like Pawan has taken over hosting. And you know what? Why don't we try that for a few seconds, Pawan?
You know what? Today we got a sequel to a movie we've done an episode on.
I believe the first sequel we've tackled on this podcast, yes?
Yes,
Our
yeah.
first time we're dipping our toes again into a franchise.
Into a franchise that has a previous entry.
Today we're talking about Christopher Nolan's 2012 superhero movie. That's a genre. Superhero movie, The Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah, just throw it out there. That's a genre. I think this was the year
that
where it
point,
was made
yes.
into a genre.
At this point, it's a genre as much as, say, the thriller, as much as, say, a rom-com.
No, I agree. But like the other thing is, I feel like the year that this came out was probably the year where it became a genre in its own right among the other big ones, as opposed to a subgenre.
What year did this come out? Great question. This film released on July 20th, 2012. The budget, kind of all over the place, about $250 million is the widely reported number.
$250 million.
1/4 of the billion.
See, we know math.
The film would go on to have an opening weekend of 160 million. At the time, the third greatest, highest grossing weekend domestically. I like throwing in big words.
You made your way through that sentence.
Now, although it was the third highest grossing opening weekend, it was the biggest opening weekend for a 2D film. This film, no 3D viewings when it was released, and had the largest IMAX opening weekend of $19 million. The film would spend 3 weeks at number one up until the release of The Bourne Legacy. Big year for Jeremy Renner. Avengers and then Bourne Legacy. But we're not talking about either of those movies. We're talking about The Dark Knight Rises. Segue!
Wait. Oh. Let's talk about Jeremy Renner for a sec. He might have had a big year in 2012. Nothing like 2020. He released 2 albums, man.
Wow. 2 albums. More than 2 movies. That's how math works.
He made those himself. You gotta live for now. Sorry, live for now.
For Mark Hughes at Forbes, September 5th, 2012, The Dark Knight Rises tops $1 billion, surpasses The Dark Knight, despite early concerns that it was underperforming after an opening weekend that didn't meet unrealistic expectations.
What?
Christopher Nolan's trilogy-ending Batman epic, The Dark Knight Rises, rose above those early doubts and has now entered the elite club of films with more than $1 billion in worldwide box office to their name.
You could say The Dark Knight Rises rose above those.
Whoa. In addition, the latest Batman movie also passed the box office tally of its predecessor, The Dark Knight, in both foreign box office and worldwide receipts. The film would go on to make $448 million domestically and $1.081 billion worldwide. At the time, it was the 7th highest grossing film domestically and worldwide. Currently sits as the 21st highest grossing domestic and 32nd highest grossing worldwide. Pawan, this was a film. It's in cinemas.
It was a movie.
What are your initial thoughts about Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight Rises?
Okay. So, just for a second, I want to talk about something. It bugs me the titling of these movies. Because it's like it goes Batman Begins, like, all right, that makes sense. The Dark Knight, we don't know if Batman's here. It's who's this Dark Knight?
Who is this man?
And then it's like Dark Knight Rises, you're playing off the theme of the Dark Knight, but like, where does the first movie fit in with that?
It is really weird that Batman Begins is the first movie in the Dark Knight trilogy.
Yeah. And I mean, like, there's been movies since that have retroactively changed their name. Why couldn't this one do that?
Pawan, you know, when there's franchises like the Catching Fire franchise or say the Dark of the Moon franchise. You gotta follow in their footsteps. Because we all know the second title is always the most important title in a franchise.
Of course.
All right. Are you ready to talk about 18 different Empire Strikes Back movies?
What? Oh. Are you sure it wouldn't be Attack of the Clones?
No, because it's Empire Strikes Back, Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, Star Wars movie,
The Skywalker saga,
a Star Wars story.
Skywalker, Skywalker. You just got to make sure that's known because it's not Star Wars with that. Let's move on.
Is this your first time watching this movie?
It is not my first time. I saw it in the theaters.
I did as well. And I think we should mention opening weekend was quite the events happened that opening weekend. This was the Aurora shooting was on that first night. You can argue that kind of threw off the box office. It was a very odd event.
I mean, ever since the Dark Knight, the Batman series has had quite a tumultuous relationship with openings, which we'll get into later with another film as well.
But I remember watching this opening weekend and being a little scared for some reason. But yeah, I watched this opening weekend and I remembered enjoying it very much. And it's one of those movies where it's like I should return to it one of these days. I'm a little scared I won't like it anymore. What about you?
So for me in the theater, I was like, yo, they're building up the hype for Batman Rising. He's going to come in and he's going to be a badass. And then like they just cut his legs off from under him. And I'm like, yo, did this movie just restart halfway through? That's how I felt in the theater. And I was not there for the second half initially. I was just like, oh, okay.
During your first watch of it.
Correct.
Fascinating. Okay.
And I haven't seen it since, except for when I saw it for this episode.
All right. I'll start off. I was afraid I wouldn't like it as much second time, and I was right. I was not the biggest fan of it the second. It's a really weird movie.
I enjoyed this a lot more than I thought I would. In fact, hot take incoming.
Whoa,
boop,
where is
boop,
it? Where's it coming?
Boop, boop. I think I like this better than The Dark Knight.
Wow, that's a hot take, and I respect it. I respect the hottest of takes, and that's a spicy.
And you know what helps contribute to that?
What?
Aidan Gillen in the first scene.
I did not realize Aidan Gillen was in this movie, and I
completely forgot. And then I saw him there. I was like, holy shit.
I didn't realize it watching. I didn't realize till I was looking at the credits and his name popped up. I'm like, wait.
He was the guy on the plane who was like interrogating the dudes. Not much of a role, but he was there.
So he's one of Bane's men?
No. He was the one actively doing it, like the one holding them outside the plane and like shooting near them. That was him. The one asking like, "Where's Bane? Why are you protecting him?" I mean, he doesn't get to do much with this role, but I love seeing him nonetheless.
He's always a fun presence, whether Game of Thrones, you're currently watching The Wire.
I finished The Wire.
I enjoy him in Sing Street. He's wonderful in stuff he does. But I found the first half of this movie, and really the whole film as just it never stops. It goes too fast. It yada yadas everything.
You know, I was looking into it, and like, apparently there was like a 4-hour cut that they initially showed the Warner Bros. People.
I'll be honest.
It makes sense.
I'll be honest. We hate longer films, especially when they're very long, like the monstrosity that is Alice in Wonderland. That feels like it's 9 hours long.
Even though it's less than 2 hours.
I wouldn't minded this movie being longer, just because I found that it never takes a second to sit in what it sets up and let the audience really process what's going on.
So I I understand why they had to do that for the theatrical cut, like make it as quick as possible in terms of like, trying to get in under that 3-hour mark, because that really does kill movies in theaters. But
Does it?
there's very few movies that even try to do it for a specific reason.
Yeah, but then you get Titanic, Lord of the Rings, you get later on Avengers Endgame. They were the big finales.
Yeah, but like there's a difference. I don't know if Christopher Nolan was at that point yet where he was able to get away with that. Like Endgame took 21 other movies of hype before they were able to do it.
The man just did Dark Knight and Inception. Those are gigantic.
I mean, I still understand the studio's hesitation, though.
That's fair. That's fair.
But like, if there was a director's cut that was longer, I wouldn't mind. But like, also, I didn't mind the quickness of this.
So, are you saying #release the Nolan cut?
You know what? We're getting a Justice League that's black and white with 20 times more spikes. Why not a Dark Knight Rises with 2 times as long?
Let's do it. Let's do it. You heard it here first, folks.
But other than that, I didn't mind the length, like the speed at the clip at which it was moving. I thought it was pretty well paced, if anything.
I'd rather a movie move too fast than too slow, so I'll give it that. But yeah, I genuinely no clue what was going on in the first half. And I still don't fully understand what Bane and Talia's plan was.
Yeah, that's one of the problems I had with this movie in terms of one thing that it did that kind of annoyed me is how it dropped the whole plot point of the Harvey Dent Act.
Now, was that established in Dark Knight, or is that supposed to be in between movie thing?
In between. Like, they used him as a martyr to establish this thing, which arrested everyone without much of a trial.
I did not fully understand. I kind of understood it, but I was still murky on the details.
Yeah, it wasn't established too well. And the thing is, it would have added a lot more nuance if it was carried through the movie.
Yeah. Well, the weird thing about this trilogy, right, is that I find the Dark Knight, you could hop into that without watching Batman Begins. Although the story doesn't really connect with Batman Begins, thematically there's a lot of connections and an evolution of the character. And then you get to Dark Knight Rises, and there's so much of the League of Shadows, and Liam Neeson comes back, and it felt like it called back so much to stuff that we were done with in one, and moved on past. Which I think moving on is a big part of this movie, and yet it's weird to be held up on stuff that was just not really acknowledged in the last one.
So one thing that is also like a glaring, which is very noticeable, is the lack of any reference to Joker in this movie.
Oh yeah,
because there are like other aspects of that film that are referenced, like how Rachel is dead, but like it's weird how they never bring up the Joker.
It's really weird, but I also just think that they were put in a corner. Like, what could you do? As soon as you mention it, then the audience wants to see it, and we know that can't happen. That's just it.
Other than that, I think it was a good choice to bring back everything to come full circle in that sense, so that he actually sees his time as Batman and what he's done and can make that choice whether or not it still needs to be a thing that he needs and or the wider Gotham needs.
Sure. And I don't think it's bad that it was brought back. It just feels weird that it makes Dark Knight feel even more as like an outlier.
Yeah, the movie that the trilogy is named after is The Outlier.
Well, obviously, Empire Strikes Back has nothing else to do with the Empire Strikes Back franchise.
Yeah, there's no Ewoks in that one.
No Ewoks, no Porgs.
Porg. We'll get to the Porgs.
Now we brought up the fact that it's weird that there's no Joker in this movie. After Ledger has arguably the most iconic role of the century, I'd say, performance.
It's
Arguably,
arguable.
this is another iconic performance. Tom Hardy's Bane.
You think it was that great?
Iconic doesn't mean it's great.
That's true, yeah.
I had a weird, because again, 2012, really enjoyed this movie. Didn't have many complaints. And I had this weird thing watching it this time where I found Bane's voice to be too clear. And it never felt like it was actually coming from the man on screen. It was kind of like this omnipresent voice just straight into my ear. And so it was a weird disconnect, and I could never fully believe in the character. And so when we get to the scene of him in the stadium, I have no clue what he was saying because my entire time was me sitting there trying to repeat what he says and recreating the voice.
It's one of those things where like everyone keeps copying it to the point where it becomes a parody of the parody of the parody, where it loses connection to the original work.
But it's tough to be invested in the movie when one of the largest presences in it you can't fully take in. It's not like I hated the voice. It just there was a disconnect because of how clear the voice was.
I mean, I had a problem with the sound mixing overall in this movie.
Yes.
Like whenever people threw punches, it was just like the most stock punch sounds.
Yes, the Bane Batman fight in the middle, I remember being like freaking out over him throwing Batman on the ground, and it's almost laughable watching it during
like,
this. Yes, and then there is a weird scene when Joseph Gordon-Levitt first goes to the orphanage home. Is that what it is, right?
Yeah,
he's talking to the boy, and I could barely hear what they're saying because like the cars driving on the street and honking are too loud. And I don't know.
Do you not use subtitles when you watch?
I typically don't.
Hmm.
And I don't feel like I missed much, but it was just weirdly mixed.
Yeah.
Neither of us are.
You brought up Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character.
Yes.
Let's talk about that for a sec. It felt like I was watching Blue Bloods for most of his scenes.
I feel like this movie was kind of like, yeah, most cops are bastards. But Joseph Gordon-Levitt's there to say, no, I'm going to quit the force.
And the thing is, I don't think people think that the cops are bad because they have too much oversight. Which is what this movie's conclusion is with Robin. He's like, no, I can't be a cop because that's too many rules.
Yeah, it's a weird presence for the character in the film.
I mean, like, I had a problem with the conclusion in the sense that it also seemed to imply that there is a need for a Batman type figure. Like maybe Bruce can't be it anymore.
Sure.
But that's why Joseph Gordon-Levitt as Robin is here.
Yes.
Where you need someone who doesn't have any oversight, has all the tools at his disposal, and can just do whatever he wants. But he's a good guy, right?
It felt like an intentional wink to the fans that takes away from the movie and the themes that it's trying to reckon with.
I don't know if I necessarily agree.
I
feel like that is where the movie is going with its themes.
He's kind of there to be the hope, right? To show the optimism and the hope in the darkness.
I guess, yeah.
Because I feel like that's what I've gotten from rewatching these three movies over these few months is Nolan trying to be like, hey, there's shit in the world, but there's always a spark of hope, you know? Maybe they won't press the buttons on the boat. You gotta believe in people.
Oh, also, I didn't actually check if this was the case, but I swear to God, one of the cops that was like focused on that wasn't Joseph Gordon-Levitt is literally a character from Blue Bloods.
Like the actor?
Yes.
Like a prominent actor or like
What in which sense? In which
like
thing?
is it a main is a cast member in Blue Bloods
Yes.
who's possibly a background actor or
Yes, he
minor
was
character?
here. Officer Simon Jansen.
Who's the actor?
Will Estes,
Shout out
who
to you, Will Estes.
who plays Jamie Reagan because of course it's Reagan. Blue Bloods, very very conservative. Let's just say that.
Yeah, that's not fun when that happens. It's like when New Girl named Megan Fox's character Reagan, right? That's the same thing.
Yeah, but see, the thing is,
it's not the same thing. It's not the same thing.
The entire family in Blue Bloods, like it follows this cop family, and they're the Reagans, and like they're the bastions of all that's good. Moving on. On a lighter topic, one thing I really enjoyed is how both Alfred and Fox, at multiple points, were told like Bruce, like, bro, you need to get laid.
So we're touching into the love interests part of this movie. I think we're both on record as saying, "Why, Nolan? Why do you do this in your movies?"
Honestly, I think it works better here than most of his other movies, because there is like.
But is that because it never works in his movies?
Because it's actually fun here.
And I'll reiterate from our Dark Knight podcast. Check it out on podcasting platforms and YouTube.
How you're watching this one or listening to this one, just scroll down or up a little bit and you'll find it.
Do the little typings. I was hit emotionally by the Bruce what's her name? What's Maggie Gyllenhaal's name? Rachel relationship in Dark Knight during this most recent rewatch. And I found really weird that after his entire life of pining over Rachel, right? Because it's up until Dark Knight, she dies 8 years in between. He's still.
Listen, it's 8 years.
But he's still on her, and Alfred tells him to stop. And then he fucks Marion Cotillard when there's no chemistry or sexual tension at all between the two of them.
I mean, I think, I personally, yeah, it wasn't necessarily there between those two, but between Anne Hathaway's Catwoman, Selena Kyle, and I thought it was a little bit.
There was a fun, playful competitiveness between them, a rivalry, if you will, but they were also very monotone and kind of wooden together. And it never worked for me.
But it's Christopher Nolan.
Yeah.
You can't really escape that.
Maggie Gyllenhaal made me feel something, and all I felt during this was laughter.
Wait, Maggie, who played
Rachel? She's Rachel in Dark Knight.
Who played Rachel in the first one again?
Katie Holmes.
Listen, I felt something when she said Bruce. All right.
And I felt something. Let me find it in my notes. I felt something when Selena goes, "Come with me." My note after that is, "Come with me." Ha.
Ha
ha. I don't think I would have. There was nothing between the two of the actors. They were wonderful actors. They did great jobs in the role. I was a big fan of Hathaway in this movie. Returned to the podcast after Alice in Wonderland. I loved her Selena Kyle. It's just there was nothing in that relationship that made me go, yes, they're gonna get together. It's one thing if they're like fucked, and then it was like, oh well, there was that. but they're
Oh, so you
romantically
would have
connected.
preferred if he got with Talia.
No,
They fucked. They fucked.
no.
The Simpson.
But there you can fuck and then not have the characters get together at the end because their relationship evolves or isn't in that way. But they are romantically linked at the end of this movie.
You know what? Maybe they just shared a vacation.
Oh, don't let me start on that vacation. Do not get me started on that vacation. But I wasn't a fan of the Selena Bruce relationship.
Another moment that I'd like to bring up that I found really funny is
May I ask a question on this topic first, and then we'll
go ahead.
So Bruce, right, in love with Rachel his entire life,
Yeah.
never gets with her. She dies 8 years later. He's still into her. Did Bruce lose his virginity to Talia? Sure, he's a playboy, but that's an act. He probably didn't actually do anything with those women, right?
Nah, I think he did at some point.
Okay. It was just a thought I had.
Because there was that period before he went to the like Himalayas to train with the League of Shadows, where he was actually the playboy. So
you wanted to bring up something?
So it's just a moment that I noticed and enjoyed very much. You remember the end of the bike chase where like Batman is holding the tablet and it's done?
Sure.
He looks so stupid and I love it.
Wait, are you saying Bale as an actor looks stupid, or the idea of Batman in the middle of the highway with this tablet and
just his facial expression too? It just looks so stupid. Like he looks dumb. He's just like, huh?
In that regard, I have a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
In the simplest of terms, this is a comic book movie. Were there any moments when you're like, yeah, that's cool. That's really cool because it's a comic book movie. Avengers has like the I'm always angry punch moment, or there's I like the fight in the woods. Did you have any moment in this movie?
The football stadium scene.
Interesting.
Where like the guy's running and then the whole thing is breaking apart but he makes it to the end goal. That was really good.
That's cool.
I mean, like, it's not a traditional superhero moment because this movie is very bleak. So there isn't really triumphant moments.
I do like whenever I was shocked how much fun I had whenever he was in one of those flying vehicles. I don't know what type. One of them is the Bat, right?
They're both the Bat.
But I don't remember. Was that Batman entering your screen?
Yes. Moving on.
But yeah, I always had fun whenever he was in the Bat and there's the reveal and he would fly through. I enjoyed whatever. Is it the Bat Pod? Is that the weird motorcycle that Anne Hathaway's on in the end?
Wasn't it the same motorcycle from The Dark Knight?
Maybe. But I liked when she'd like make a U-turn in it and then the wheels are like spinning.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was also a thing in The Dark Knight.
Well,
it was enjoyable here too, though. Yeah,
there was no cool villain to distract me from the coolness of the vehicle.
Listen.
And hey, Tom Hardy does a solid work. There's an intensity in his eyes during that when he's in front of like City Hall. I don't know where at the end fight when he's giving like a little speech and talking to Bruce, and he's kind of menacing and scary. And I'm like, damn, this could have been something.
So. One thing I really like about this movie is how they did manage to up the stakes from The Dark Knight. I know for a lot of people it didn't necessarily work for them, but I do like how it went from just these isolated moments and into the whole city is under attack in that sense.
Sure.
And like the set pieces were also much bigger.
Yes. And that's something I did not like about this movie. When I look at Batman Begins, right, the very first one, let's reminisce on the Liam Neesons of it all right? I don't like the ending with them on the train rushing in and exploding and stuff like that. And then we get to the Dark Knight. The Dark Knight doesn't have a big spectacle fight. There's the cool stuff of Bruce going in the building and finding the hostages and whatnot, but the fight between Joker and Bruce at the end is messy and rough and kind of off kilter, if you will.
So what I did like about this is that the spectacle was not just big explosions necessarily, but like specified in how it handled things. Like the idea that all the cops are trapped underground.
Okay.
You don't really see that.
You're right. You're right.
And like just how they did manage to elevate it, it isn't what you'd normally expect from like big blockbuster movies.
I
That's
will
what I enjoyed.
I will say the final fight of everyone fighting, like punching each other and whatnot. I wasn't the biggest fan of, but it did feel more in line with like Return of the King rather than Endgame.
I mean, to be fair, this trilogy did have a problem. Like the fight choreography wasn't the best.
Yeah. There was one moment though during that final fight where Bane punches the pillar and leaves a mark. I'm like, holy shit, that was scary. We needed more of that.
I feel like that was also another aspect of it where he was getting more powerful with his thing cut.
Oh, was that? I see.
That's the sense that I got, but like it wasn't really firmly established.
No, it was not. Like a lot about Bane, it was not firmly established.
Going back to that first scene.
Okay.
Even though I loved Aidan Gillen, I don't know if this scene by itself necessarily works. Because unlike, it felt like they were trying to do the way the Dark Knight began again, with like a big heist to establish the villain of the piece.
Oh,
But
go on.
But whereas in that one, you get like clear established things in terms of even visual presentation. You don't really get that as much with this one.
Well, this one is weird because it feels bigger because we're breaking into the plane and it's more complicated and then stuff is falling and whatnot and they're hanging out the end, but it doesn't feel like as major of an event because it doesn't take its time. It feels rushed. I'm still not 100% certain what Bane did and why there was a blood transfusion. I'm not that scared of him.
So what I think happened in that scene after seeing the scene in the football stadium where he brings out Dr. Pavel, I remembered like, oh, they all think he's dead. So what Bane was doing was he was bringing him back to life with the blood transfusion.
Might as well.
So like that's what I think was happening there.
I noticed in the opening scene specifically, and a little more later on, that while the characters were speaking, Nolan would cut to different parts of of what's going on to establish, like, oh, here's another plane coming, here's something else coming. And it cut the flow of the scene often.
I actually liked how that was establishing the broader city through that.
During the opening scene?
Oh, I thought you were talking about during the invasion aspect.
I found it during the opening scene and another early moment, but the plane scene, it'd be like Bing's like, oh yes, I've come here with the stuff, and then before he could tell you what the stuff is, it cuts to this other plane flying, and again, I just can't.
Oh, that's what you're talking about.
I can't grab onto what's going on because so much is happening so fast. While I look back at the Dark Knight, and it's so slow, so meticulous, as it establishes all these characters and each of their places in the job, because it's like, hey, boss told me to shoot this guy. Oh, he told me to shoot this guy. Oh.
Well, in this one, it feels like there's a lot of inserts because they do need to establish those things for later aspects of the scene or like later scenes overall.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there was a lot of that.
May I ask you another question? That the score by Hans Zimmer, I think Whether you enjoy Nolan, I feel like everyone loves Hans Zimmer, right? Maybe I'm wrong.
I mean,
I've
it's great in like certain moments, but like when the entire scope of movie soundtracks try to follow suit, it loses its charm.
like Marvel's The Avengers. So I found in this movie, uh, the score also never fucking stops. It was a lot,
There was
and
one scene where it stopped.
there are moments in the opening scene when it stops. Are you talking about the football scene?
No, I was talking about the fight scene in the sewer.
Oh, it does. It does stop there as well. But yeah, I found the score to overpower the movie at many moments. Did we talk? We talked about the sewer scene, right? How neither of us enjoyed it.
It's the sound effects. I mean, it could have. I feel like the pieces were there, but the sound effects really brought it down.
And it's really weird that a movie like this had a weird sound effects.
Yeah. Yeah.
$250 million, and you would think,
and no Wilhelm scream.
huh? I never noticed it. Never think about it until I hear it. Maybe they had no money for it. Maybe they used all their money.
But it's a free soundbite.
They couldn't afford free. I will note something interesting. This film is one of maybe 2 or 3 so far in this podcast. Not a single Oscar nomination. And this feels like something like sound should have been up its corner.
I mean, yeah, but we've already discussed why it isn't. But one thing I've noticed about this franchise is like whenever they're trying to film the action scenes to invoke a feeling other than just like showcasing action, it's done really well.
Such as
the fight scene in the sewer if you take out the sound effects. Such as the moment where Robin is running through the hospital with the shotgun. That was a really tense moment.
Wait, he does that in this movie?
Yeah, to find Commissioner Gordon before Bane's
I see.
people
Yes.
get to
No,
him.
yeah, that is a good scene. That's a good scene. I will say I liked the ending. Well, not the ending. I'm iffy on that, but the final act and that entire chase toward the bomb. I feel like I shouldn't like, but I was so enthralled that like my heart was pacing.
I mean, I think it works.
Yeah, it works very well.
Again, it's another thing where they found a set piece that isn't so often done and like made it work in an interesting way.
Yeah, all different parties coming
to
in.
actually get you invested. Yeah.
I kind of wish I didn't know about the Talia plot twist to get a cold reaction to it. Because I'm watching it now. I'm like, oh yeah, I know what's gonna happen, and I can't tell if it's well established before that it makes sense that it's a reveal. I feel like it wasn't.
So, if you're a comic book fan, you knew as soon as she was established who she was, because that was an established alias of Talia al Ghul in the comics.
I didn't realize that because I do remember watching it in theaters and being like, Ra's al Ghul's child isn't Bane. Whoa, that's weird that you took this turn, Nolan. And then he was like, no, I did not take that turn.
What do you mean?
Like I thought Nolan was going straying from the comics by having Bane be Raj's child. The very first time I watched it back in theaters, and so yeah, I don't know. I find the greatest plot twist still hit you hard, and during this one, I was like, oh, okay.
How do I feel about that reveal? I feel like that's a moment where this film's sharp editing to get to the point really helps. like in establishing that information by itself, because it didn't turn into a Crimes of Grindelwald situation.
What are you talking about? That movie made perfect sense. The Titanic?
Switch the babies, then switch them again, then switch them again.
It's okay. Because they switched the babies and now they're switching Grindelwalds. That franchise is perfectly
Thematic cohesion.
that franchise is fine. It's gonna be okay. Let's ignore, the person in charge of it and yeah.
So another scene I'd like to talk about is the stock exchange moment by itself. How do you
Okay.
feel about that?
I'll be honest, I still don't understand how stocks work. So I was so lost in the plot at that point. I'm like, okay, stuff is happening.
I feel like that was another moment where they could have established Bane as like a villain of the people better.
But is Bane trying to be a villain of the people?
Yes.
That's partially a genuine question because I still don't know what their plan
he definitely
was.
is. Like there's that one moment where one of the guys is like, this is a stock exchange. There's no money to steal. And then he says, then why are you people here? So like there's moments like that do exist where he is trying to be like established as like, and there is the theme throughout the movie where it's like that scene where Selena Kyle is talking to Bruce Wayne, where it's like how you could live so large and leave so little for the rest of us.
Sure.
So like that is something that is established throughout the like first half of the movie, then just gets dropped for the second half.
I will say when people think your main character is dead, it's hard to clean up ties. Is that what I'm trying to say? But no, yeah, it's a good point. It's teasing a deeper meaning and message to the movie, and without fully committing.
Because it also feels like, again, with the ending with Robin becoming the next Batman, it feels like it just decides, you know what, all that we've established, that's all fine and good, but like that's not true. We need the billionaires to help us.
He's not. I understand what you're saying, but yeah.
But like Batman as a figure is a perfect example. All right, we're gonna put on your philosophy hat for a second.
Oh, give me 1 second.
All right, it's on?
Yeah, it's on. It's on.
Okay. So it feels like Andrew Carnegie's ideal, because what Andrew Carnegie did as a philanthropist and as like a well-known rich person was he decided he gave his money back to causes which he thinks were worthy. So the idea is that let these rich people handle things and make things better for everyone else. Let them decide what's important. And it feels like Batman is a perfect example of that. The idea is to not like is to let the free market exist so that the rich people can decide how to help everyone, as opposed to having government oversight and having government try to deal with these things.
That's a fair point to bring in. I'm processing. I'm thinking.
Because the idea is that like these rich people, they have the means to do it. We let them do it so that they can easily accomplish it on their own volition. But then again, you have to trust these people to inherently do the right thing, which is the problem.
Does the Joseph Gordon-Levitt character kind of
Well, I feel like his decision to leave the Force to accept. In a sense, it's like private military like equipment and stuff like that, which is what Batman has.
There's a, I don't know if I'd say thematic, but this kind of idea in this film of um fighting the fight and finding a reason to fight the fight, and I don't know if that's where I'm going. It's really weird that you have Robin or Blake. Let's call him Blake. He's not Robin. Robin's name isn't Robin. All right. I don't know why we're playing with Nolan's weirdness.
I mean, that was his middle name or last name in this movie.
Wasn't Blake was like an orphan who like rose up and became a part of the force and then quit and seemingly choosing to do good in the way that he sees fit.
Taking the power into his own hands.
Bruce has to overcome the everything, Rachel's death and whatnot, and find a reason to fight. Selena finds a reason to fight and taking stuff into her own hands.
If anything, I think actually this film does come to the conclusion that so like Bane's supposed to be a villain for the people. Like it may not be what he actually does, but like the way he's set up initially is that he's giving the power back to the people. And like Robin, Tim Blake or whatever, as a police officer is supposed to be an agent of that sort of thing initially. And him deciding not to do that and to use Batman's equipment and go out on his own, he's following the footsteps of Batman in the sense that he's taking that into his own hands and deciding what's good for everyone else. Another line that Bane says...
Wait. I'm still confused what the fuck Bane was doing.
That's actually very important.
The whole plan is to blow up the city, right?
Yes.
And so, I'm so confused how any of that played into it and what the steps were to get to the... It's yeah. So maybe that's why I'm having trouble.
I mean...
Because I'm missing what you're seeing.
It might be a problem of the thematic elements, not... Because it doesn't follow through. It doesn't follow through to the actual plot necessarily either. Though, going off of what you just said... It's funny you mentioned that you don't understand what Bane's plot was. Because in that initial plane sequence, you know what he says?
What does he say?
It doesn't matter who we are. What matters is our plan.
God damn it.
Which, on its own, I think is an interesting twist in the main thing of the main thesis statement of these movies.
Because there's a bit of that with the Joker, right, in Dark Knight.
Well, I was talking more in terms of like the line from Batman Begins, like, it's not who I am underneath, but what I do that defines me. And then we go from that. It's like, it doesn't matter who I am. It matters what I'm doing. Yeah. So it's like depersonalization in that sense. It's like, yeah. In a sense, that's further establishing him as not important in his own way, in his own right.
We haven't talked, I don't know if we talked enough about the actors. I think Christian Bale does as good as he does in any of the Batman movies. Gary Oldman's great.
I always find him funny when he's being Batman.
The
voice is so cartoony.
Yes.
Where is it?
I also never... I realized it, but never articulated it in my head that he has like a bit of a duck face whenever he does Batman.
Yeah. That's also why I was like, in that sequence, I was like, he looks so stupid.
It's not even just when he talks, just the entire time.
Yeah. You know, but like specifically with him looking at the things like, what?
There wasn't that much Morgan Freeman in this movie, which I found interesting, but he's solid.
Yeah.
Gary Oldman does great stuff. Marion Cotillard with what she does solid work. I was a big fan of Anne Hathaway in this movie. I thought she was my favorite part of this movie.
Right. I agree. She's great.
She's a lot of fun.
Another aspect of the theming that I find interesting is how they were using his own weapons against him. Wait, no. Oh no. This ruins the messaging because that just further emphasizes that the power needs to be in the hands of the few to decide what's important for everyone else. I enjoyed watching it.
I still don't think Nolan wants to go too deep into anything. I think it's impossible to avoid it 100%. But I don't think he wants to go deep into anything with these movies.
I don't know. But another thing, looking back on it in current year, there was one moment where Bane is torturing someone and he puts his knee on his neck. And I just felt that was noteworthy because of what happened last year.
Yeah. It was a cop, though, right?
Was it?
I think it was a cop.
I don't remember who it was, but like, yeah, that was a thing that happened.
Yeah.
Can
I talk about the dream?
What?
When Alfred's like, I always dreamed of saying you.
Sure.
In with minding your day with your wife.
With your wife.
Oh no, he says something like that because he might
wife.
But he has that for the first time he tells Bruce it. It cuts to him on vacation looking out. And I felt like you couldn't trust your audience to put the pieces together at the end. You need to show it to us twice for us to understand what's going to happen at the end.
Listen, everyone was confused with Inception. So it's like, you know what? I'm going to give these people no.
What's confusing about Inception?
Bruh, don't even get me. I remember when I initially was going into that movie, all my cousins and everyone was like, yeah, it's a great movie, but it's really confusing, man. Like, it's hard to follow. It's like, what are you talking?
I watched that movie for the first time this year. Pretty straightforward.
I saw it in theaters when it came out, and I thought it was straightforward.
That's part of what I liked about Inception and Dark Knight is I find them so much more focused and singular in intention rather than, say, Dark Knight Rises or maybe even Batman Begins.
Hmm.
But yeah, I did not need to see him on his vacation twice.
I'll be honest, the way that sequence was shot reminds me of the way a lot of plays to movies are doing things these days, where like they have a monologue and then they'll cut to like an example of it.
Mm-hmm. As if, that's what they did on stage because you needed proof.
It's like, you know what? We've been in this room too long. Let's get out. Let's get out.
Imagine they did that in Ma Rainey. God, that would take so much out of Ma Rainey's Black Bottom.
They did do it like once or twice where they jump to like people looking out of windows and stuff like that.
But I'm just thinking Levy's monologue.
Yeah.
Imagine, because someone would have done that.
I mean, I feel like they did something like that in Fences, did they not?
We're not, but neither of us are the biggest fans of Fences, aren't we?
I mean, that's why I'm bringing it up.
So you're saying Denzel Washington, terrible director. Is that what you're saying?
I'm not saying anything. I don't know why I'm on this podcast. I don't say anything. Nothing I say has meaning. I just say words, and you're listening to them right now.
But aren't that what all words are?
I mean, you could read words.
Damn, you can. I never realized until this watch that Catwoman's ears are her goggles. So when she puts her goggles back up, they're the ears. Like, oh, that's cool. No, I
Yeah,
like
it's
this part of the
nice.
costume. I never liked that part of the costume, but I'm like, oh, it works.
There was one moment towards the end where I forget who says it, but they were like, nothing like a little air superiority. And in my mind, I was like, high ground.
Are you really mad we're not talking about that movie?
A little bit.
I don't think we ever brought it up on that episode, but like
We
the plan.
didn't.
No, the plan was to make all 6 movies in 3D and re-release them.
Oh,
They only did it with one.
that would have.
I think Disney bought them and that threw it off.
Yeah, but why didn't Disney do that?
Disney thought new movies were. I don't know.
Because I mean, they don't have a problem doing it with like the Lion King.
But Lion King was the first one. Disney did it with their animated movie. Like Finding Nemo and Beauty and the Beast came out in 3D and did not make that much money, like relatively. So I guess they were like, oh, this isn't that gonna work.
Yeah, but they should have seen the success of the first Star Wars and done. I mean, listen, Star Wars makes so much money for them that I'm surprised they haven't yet.
No, yeah, it's weird
Because like still the DVDs for like the movies that came out in the 70s are like $30 each.
Well, Pawan, because they've been edited since then, and those are the original versions of the film as George Lucas originally intended for them to be.
How do you feel about The Pit?
I loved it in Harley Quinn. That's an awesome episode where Bane's like,
It was.
This is like a motel. And then George Lopez comes as entertainment in the television series Harley Quinn. It's kind of there. It's so weirdly off from the entire story that it felt weird. Like it didn't mesh well.
I felt like that was coming full circle idea again, whereas like he has to re-establish his connection with Batman by going into a place similar to where he learned.
I also found it rushed. But again, I was already taken out by me trying to imitate Bane by this point that I don't know where I was because I started just saying anyone's lines in Bane's voice. But yeah, I wasn't. It wasn't bad. The thing with this movie is that it's very well crafted, and I think it's just didn't mesh well together for me. There's nothing in this movie I hate. I take that back. Talia has this line. His only crime was that he loved me.
So, I actually really like the relationship between Talia and Bane. It feels like he's a father figure that she was deprived.
Well, this goes into my biggest problem with Talia. I'm fascinated. I thought we'd be agreeing on a lot more stuff, but we're clashing heads, and it's a fun conversation. So she was mad at her dad, right, for deserting her?
Yes.
So why did she want to go through with his plan? Why isn't she resenting him more?
Well, it's one of... Okay. You can have a lot of complicated relationships with your parents, but like, I think the idea is that when Batman killed Ra's al Ghul, she was denied any form of closure or connection to him.
Oh.
So the anger transferred more to him than to her father. So like, as part of trying to reach closer to him again, she went through with his plan.
I see. Okay. I'll take that. And the Bane Talia relationship and the guardian figure and I like the idea of that in the reveal. It's just the line, his only crime was that he loved me, feels so melodramatic.
Well, I feel like there were aspects of this movie that did go for more of that heightened sense. It's not as realistic as the previous two.
Is that probably because the larger scale film? Right?
Yeah. But like it also felt like you know, I can't necessarily like point to any moments necessarily, but it did feel like this was a little more, and the dialogue was a little quippier.
Sure. Oh, I forgot one of my favorite moments when you talk about quippy. Um, he's talking to Catwoman and she disappears and goes,
Oh yeah,
that's how that feels. Like, oh, that was funny. I did laugh more in this movie than I thought. Some of it unintentional, but a fair amount intentional.
I mean, whenever Christian Bale tries to be intimidating as Batman, I kind of chuckle to myself. Just like how he tries to make his voice so deep. Where is the...
I feel like we didn't get enough of Hermit Bruce Wayne in this movie. And I think that's part of why it didn't work as well this time. It felt again, a lot of it felt yada yada. I don't know. It didn't feel like he rose that much from where he was in the last movie.
Feel like he didn't fully wake up.
No. Someone told him to wake him up inside, and he was like, I can't wake up.
Oh yeah, another thing from the final sequence where Robin is in the Batcave.
Sure.
So, Christopher Nolan's British, right?
British. Yes, I believe so.
So his films have a bit of that British sensibility.
Okay.
Robin's literally holding a torch in that scene.
Two questions. One, why is that weird? Two, where did he get it from?
I just find it interesting thematically, and well, the torch is like the light, like just the rod of like whatever light. It's like because Batman's passing the buck on him, passing the torch. So Robin's got the torch.
I see. I thought it was weird how he swung into the waterfall like that. Nothing about the character told me he could do that.
That's true. They didn't really establish his acrobatics.
No, he wasn't trained.
Or am I thinking of a different Robin? I know one of them was a carnival person.
This guy's name is Robin Blake something. None of the actual Robin's names are Robin or Blake, I think.
No, there is a Blake Robin.
Isn't it Tim Drake? Did I make that up?
John Blake.
Is it John Blake? That's not the one that died, is it? No.
Or is he literally just in this movie?
I think this is that one.
Yep, that's the name that's only in this movie.
And I don't mind a completely different Robin.
No, but like it would also be nice to actually see him be Robin. If you're going to do that.
But that's I don't know, again, it's that thing of hope. Weirdly, these are weirdly optimistic movies, and I think Nolan wants to leave you with some hope for the future.
You know what? I think what should happen is Batman gives all his technology to the police force, and then they got Batmobiles in the streets instead of tanks or their cop cars.
Sure. You have anything else you want to say?
No, I don't think so.
Hold on. Let me just pull up the cast list again, because there is some stuff I wanted to bring up for fun. I enjoyed it, and I closed that tab, and now I have to reopen the tab. I'm opening the tab.
Oh wait, there is one thing.
Go on as I look for this. Go on.
Commissioner Gordon and how like initially Robin is angry at what he did with the Dent Act in terms of like lie, not so much with the act itself, but the lying about Harvey Dent.
What about
which
this?
is a choice, but then like at the end he's like, no, I get it. You're absolved of that. That was a choice.
Was a choice. It was a choice.
Like, you know what? When you're a police officer, you got to make tough decisions. Like, if you want to, you know, turn someone into something they're not, just so that you could clean up the streets without having to worry about, you know, actually doing your job as a police officer. But I digress.
Shout outs to, I don't know, Cillian Murphy? Cillian Murphy, right?
Oh, right. The way Scarecrow just pops up in these movies.
It's weird. But it's I love his performance so much. It's always fun to see him.
Like, if that was, I feel like this was also a great place. That was another area where they could have established that hammer a little bit thicker in terms of locking people up unnecessarily.
Sure.
And stuff like that.
With the man who like poisoned everyone?
Okay, no. But like, he's a vehicle.
Sure.
For like to connect to other characters who may have been that way.
Shout out to Juno Temple. I just watched Ted Lasso and she's in it and she's wonderful in that. She's Selena Kyle's friend who has like 3 lines. Shout out to Ben Mendelsohn, who I forgot was in this movie.
Who's that again?
He's one of the billionaires. I think he's the one that Bane kills. With the hands right there.
Yes. It's
like, I didn't know you were here, Ben Mendelsohn. You're fun. It's always nice to see you. I think that's it. I think that's all I got in this movie. You got anything else you want to say about this movie? Why do you think this movie made $1 billion?
Because it was the epic conclusion to the Dark Knight Trilogy.
It really was.
Which might as well have been a duology in terms of making money.
I think it made $1 billion because there's a scene where there's a TJ Maxx flag that says TJ Maxx coming soon in the background, and everyone loves TJ Maxx. I just wanted to throw that in somewhere. No, yeah, it's still a very well done movie. It's a culmination. Worldwide, it grew, and it was just really, really good. Very, very solid film. It's a solid film. Oh, did you have more? Go on.
I enjoyed this more than The Dark Knight because the themes weren't as blatantly pro-cop. And even though it wasn't followed through on completely, I would have liked to see a more humanized Bane in that sense in the second half of the movie.
Yes. He is.
And like fully establish that reckoning and like why it needed to happen. That would have been nice. Like the reason why I like this more is because it sowed the seeds for that sort of themes as opposed to the Dark Knight where it's just like, yo, sometimes you gotta stop wacky chaos. I don't know. I personally like the idea of Bane more as a villain than Joker because I could do whatever. All I like is anarchy. That can only go so far in terms of interesting decisions or like plot motivations and stuff like that.
Sure, but again, we established like the Dark Knight is such an outlier. It feels almost like its own movie, while this is following up on Batman Begins.
Right.
It's an odd step in retrospect. I guess because it's odd doesn't mean it's bad.
Right.
You know. But just because it's not bad doesn't mean it's perfect. For as we've established for many weeks, you know, I just remember I had a thought. And unlike this film, I took a moment to think about the thought. I let it sit within me. It was like, not every movie is perfect.
Whoa.
It's crazy.
Yo, you know what? You saying that thought made me think. Not every movie's perfect.
It's you know, I thought from Twitter that every movie is perfect.
I thought from Twitter that like either a movie is perfect or it's the worst thing ever made.
And yet there's an in between.
Crazy.
Wow. Well, let's take that in between and let it rise to perfection with these ideas.
Masinson, how would you like to fix this movie?
Damn it, I'm starting. Hold on, I need a second to look for a line. There's a line I need that inspires this entire thing, and I'm going to look for it. I was going to ask you to go first, but don't worry. I'll look for the line really quick. I'm going to talk while I'm looking for this line. I could have done it while we were vamping on the fact that no film is perfect, but I was just so struck by that idea. You know, I just had to sit in it. All right. The Dark Knight Rises. So at the end of the movie, it's very scary. There's a bomb. We don't know if it's going to go off or not. How? What?
Scary.
And Batman's like, oh yeah, I'll take the bomb. And Gordon's like, no, you can't take the bomb. Can you at least tell me who you are so that people know who saved them? And then Batman has a line. A hero can be anyone. Even a man doing something as simple as reassuring as putting a coat on a young boy's shoulders to let him know that the world hadn't ended. And then he drives off while Gordon stands there thinking, pondering. I believe he says something in the movie, but I will take that line out. I don't think that line's necessary. So he's thinking there, taking it in. And then we don't see Gordon for the rest of the movie. That's the last we see of Gordon, right?
Mm-hmm. I mean, what he says in that moment is...
I'm changing it so we don't see him at it, because he pops up in like the funeral, and he's
okay,
like, we didn't know. But I'm changing it so he doesn't pop up for the rest of the movie after Batman leaves. And now we add arguably the most important part of these movies, the post-credit scene. And
wait,
so,
was there one here?
No, there's not. So I'm adding one.
Okay.
And so, you know, the part of the movie where it's like cast, director, title, Dark Knight Rises. Then the score comes to hum as the title fades out. Right? And then you get the shot. It starts from the like and looking up from the room, and it kind of like has a little dolly where it moves to the left, where you're looking. It's like a mess. The room's a mess. It's a dark room. It's a mess, and it's slow pan, and you see a door. You hear someone knocks on the door. Right?
Okay.
Gordon comes, opens the room, the door, and it is Robin there. And Robin's like, Gordon, you got it. It's been years. It's been years since the Batman's died. You got to stop it. And Gordon's like, no, I can do it. I can solve it. And so you see all these things on the wall of all the different children that he's put his coat on. Because he's done it multiple times. It's not like he's put his coat on and tried to comfort one child. And so he has all the conspiracy, like the lines connecting stuff. He looks like Charlie Day in that meme, trying to figure out, I will figure out who it is. Which child did I help that one time to create the Batman? It doesn't make any sense because I've helped thousands of children. And Robin's like, Gordon. You can't. And Gordon's like, I will. End of the scene.
So I'll be honest, when you were setting that up, I thought you were going to go like the Sherlock season 3 opening route.
I've never seen Sherlock season 3.
So spoiler alert for the ending of Sherlock season 2. Sherlock dies, or does he? And then season 3 opens with this random dude who has like a Sherlock blog where he's like, I can figure it out. I know how he survived. And like, it's supposed to be making fun of the fans who are like poking fun at the fans who are doing that, trying to figure it out. Because like they did set up that he did survive it as like the final shot of season 2. So like, I know how he survived. I know he did. And then like it never actually does explain it. Like the show just it's like, all right, no.
You mean like this movie when it's like, oh, autopilot?
I mean, they
It's not
explain that
too-
in retrospect.
Yeah, it's not too crazy. Like he probably dropped out of the plane or whatever, right?
No, because they did establish that he fixed the autopilot and he didn't tell anyone.
I'm saying he probably dropped out of the plane while he was in autopilot or something,
Yeah.
and that's how he got out.
Yeah.
So I think I perfected that and gave Gary Oldman the material he needed to get what would have been at the time his second Oscar nomination and his first win. Because really, the range in that scene compared with the rest of the movies would have been incredible.
Well, I mean, he has one at this point, right?
Yes, at this point, but we could have given it to Chalamet instead if he already had one.
That was for the Darkest Hour, right?
Yes.
Don't interrupt me when I'm interrupting.
Hey, he's in the competition now for Mank.
That gullet, perfectly lit.
You know what else is perfect? Your ideas for fixing this film. Pawan,
Right.
how would you fix
Okay.
this film?
So first, let's start with that sewer fight. Just take out all the sound effects. Just let the water trickle and just have the like normal sounds of people hitting each other just to like heighten how pathetic Batman is in that moment. Because I feel like that is what the scene was trying to do, but like it wasn't fully there.
Is it me or at the end of that scene when Bane's punching Batman's face, he looks like a dummy with a mask on getting a half-assed punch? Like, it was so weird. But go on.
So that's one thing I'd do. So we've established that this takes place 8 years after the previous film.
It does.
When did the previous movie come out, you asked? 2008.
Wow.
So that means this film was set in 2016. What happened in 2016? The rise.
Tell me.
What happened is Trump was elected president and people were like, you know what? It's okay to be racist now. Trump's my leader. So what I'd like is at the end of this movie, let's give all the weaponry and machine and like all the Wayne tech to the police and just allow them to run amok and like set up a future movie where Robin's like, and you know what? This was a fake out. This isn't the real Robin. Robin's black. And that's going to be the next movie set in 2017 where he has to reckon with this corrupt police force that has all the tech that they should not have. And they find uses for it when they shouldn't.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I'm good.
You made this movie better by giving a sequel.
By giving it an actual politically charged sequel.
I see. Can I say it's not a good sign when, other than Morgan Freeman, the only person of color I remember seeing in this film was a black man. I believe he was a cop. And he pointed out that, do I have the line here? Yes. They were talking about money. Now there's no money left in the stocks or whatever. And the black cop goes, really? Mine's is in my mattress. One of two black men I remember in this movie are Morgan Freeman and cop with money in his mattress.
It's like, all right, I know whose house I'm going to tonight.
I think we did a good job there.
Yeah.
Hey, Nolan, let us work on Tenet 2. Because we got the ideas.
You know, I haven't seen it yet. I do want to actually watch it.
I'm intrigued.
I wouldn't have seen it in theaters. I didn't see it in theaters, but I want to watch it.
I'm actually more excited for a movie that by Nolan that people are uncertain of more than a movie people love from Nolan.
Yeah.
As someone who's not the biggest fan, I'm like, I'm intrigued what he did different that people aren't the biggest fan now.
I mean, I have a feeling I'm going to enjoy it more than Interstellar.
I kind of want to rewatch it now.
I don't.
I liked that movie more than you did.
You definitely did.
But
You didn't fall asleep during the beginning of that movie.
There's some movies I've fallen asleep in though that I wouldn't blame the movie.
No. But like this one was because it was boring sort of sleep.
See. Well, although it's the same director and 90% of the same actors and probably behind the scenes team, we're not talking about Interstellar because who cares where that movie goes? It did not make $1 billion.
Tui.
That's me spitting and it landing in the pot.
So we've talked about our opinions, but now we got to deal with objective facts and deal with the rankings because everyone knows film criticism is about what can be proven mathematically,
scientifically,
stemically.
Stemically? We're using the stems from plants to poke at it?
Yes.
Wow. Let me share my screen.
Hopefully I will be able to rank one.
Let's see what happens. We will see what happens this time. So, do we want to do the recap at the top of the list or at the end?
Let's do it after.
After? All right. So, Pawan, as we established, we're going to flip a coin. I'm going to flip it 3 times first just to see if it lands on different stuff. The first time it was a heads. Second time it was a heads. Third time it was tails. All right. And fourth time it was a tails. Pawan.
Okay. So here's my strategy going forward. I'm going to pick the exact same thing every time. And at some point, it's got to work.
Okay. So
because statistically speaking, the chances of it happening over and over and over again will be so small that it just can't. It can't.
So this time you will be picking
heads.
I think that's what you've done every week. So one more flip.
I'm telling you, one of these days, the odds of it happening are getting slimmer and slimmer, Miss Simpson.
Wow. Okay. That's okay. Well,
unless we break statistics with this podcast.
Yeah. One.
Okay. Do you like this movie better? Oh, shit. Do you like this movie better or worse than The Dark Knight?
That's not the most recent movie.
The most recent movie is The Avengers. And
yes.
Well, I guess it could be better, but fine. Do you like this better than The Avengers?
I do not.
Wow, what a shocker. All right. Do you like this better or worse than Star Wars Episode 1, Phantom Menace?
I like it better than Phantom Menace.
Okay, then. We at number 33, we have The Dark Knight Rises.
What an odd list we have.
That is, you know what? 31 to 34. Those are choices.
Okay, well,
I feel like I would do the inverse, but those are choices.
Well, people don't know the choices yet. Let's start from the very bottom.
So at number 47, we have Pirates of the Caribbean on Stranger Tides. At number 46, we got Alice in Wonderland. At number 45, it's Toy Story 3. Number 44, Avatar. Number 41, Transformers Dark of the Moon. 37, Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man's Chest. Number 34, we got Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. 33, we got Dark Knight Rises. 32, Dark Knight. 31, Marvel's Avengers. 27, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2. 21, tied for 21, we got Dr. Seuss's How the Grinch Stole Christmas. At 19, we got Titanic. And at number 3, we have Lord of the Rings, Return of the King. So I'll say for 31 to 34, you picked all of those. You picked those.
You chose heads each time.
You picked those.
Did I do Dark Knight?
You did. Wait, did you? Oh no, I think I did because that's why it's so low. Maybe.
I don't know.
know.
But yeah, this is a list of movies, and I'm kind of scared to see what ends up in the top because it's a fact that they belong at the top.
Point, it seems like it's gonna be up to you what ends up on top.
Chaos.
How many times have we flipped the coin?
3 or 4 times. I think it was.
So 4 times. The first time, 1 out of 2. The second time, to get both of those in a row, that's 1 out of 4. The third time, to get both of those in a row, that's 1 out of 8. The fourth time, to get all 4 of those in a row, that's 1 out of 36.
Here, Juan. I'll toss out an idea. Next week, do you want to have an actual coin and you flip it rather than the computer?
Part of me wants to keep this going to see how far how far this fraction is gonna go.
I can't wait till it's my opinion for each ranking up until the last episode, which is you.
We're gonna keep track of the numbers.
Yeah. We'll keep track of it.
Right now we're at 1 out of 32.
God. Well, thank you for joining us for this week's episode of the $1 Billion Movie Club, starring Christian Pawan, Pawan Mehta, and Bane. Oh, that was a really bad one. That was a really bad Bane. Join us next week where we discuss the film Skyfall. I'm not
finally diving into 007.
I'm not certain if Skyfall's streaming. I think it might be on the Netflix or the Hulus.
That's a great question.
But
I know that Casino Royale and Quantum of Solace are on Netflix.
Hey, Pawan, last week Dark Knight Rises wasn't streaming anywhere, and then out of nowhere, 2
bada
days
bing,
later,
bada boom, it's on the HBO Max.
So let's see what happens. Also, bada bing, bada boom. Great replication of the sound effects from the whole fight in this movie.
Bada bing, bada.
So thank you once again for joining us. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe on the YouTube.
And leave us an email.
An email at, what is that email again, Juan?
It was at $1billion_movie_club at hotmail.google.gmail.aol.com.
Thank God all these corporations have merged into one and made emailing so much easier to keep track of. And so that is this week's episode. Join us next week for Skyfall.
It doesn't matter who we are. What matters is our plan.